Welcome to another episode of Meal Prep Monday. I'm your host, Allison Schaaf, and today we're talking about something kind of like meal planning adjacent. It's definitely in the realm of organization and systems, which is very much in line with Prep Dish and our values. But the topic today is photo organization, and I'm really excited to talk about this. This is something I've been working on for the past year or two. Like I've really kind of taken a deep dive into setting up a system and a process. And so I'm excited to share more about that with you. Before we jump in, a quick reminder that if you have not tried the Prep Dish Meal Prep meal plans, you can text 33777, the word meal prep, all one word, for 1 week of a free meal plan, or you can just go to prepdish.com mpm/mpm, that's short for Meal Prep Monday, and try out a 2-week free trial. This is the way to go if you really want to access all of the archives of our meal plans. And again, these meal plans very much a system and process for your meals. Today, we're going to talk system and process for your photos. And I think you'll be able to tell from this episode how excited I get about systems and processes in general to kind of help your life be more intentional and kind of get back the time to spend with your family, be more intentional with your time so you can spend time with those that you love. Like that's kind of what we're doing at Prep Dish. And with today's photo organization topic, that's what I'm going to talk more about. So I'll back up a little bit. Photo organization. I'm sure some of you can relate, especially now that we all have these, cameras on our phones. It can be really overwhelming, right? Like how the quantity of photos even that we can have just from a day or a week or a month. And then what do we do with all of these photos? Where are they being stored? How are we organizing them? What are we even doing with them, right? Like, are we even using them for anything? Like, what is the point of all these photos? These are some of the questions I've been asking over the past few years. I think especially since having kids, I've become a lot more it's become something that's been more important to me, right? Like the kids change so fast and, capturing some of that through photos is important to me. But I will also say not having my phone even on me when I'm with my kids is really important to me. Like I really try and be aware of not having my phone with me, going through and doing a photo organization project, which is what I've been doing kind of a deep dive into that over the past few years. It also makes me aware of the quantity of photos that can pile up on my phone and realizing that I actually don't need or want a large quantity of photos, right? Like I do want photos, but I don't need 50 photos a day. I don't even need photos from every single day, right? And I think with our phones, it's easy to, and with babies especially, because they're changing so much. And I am glad that I have photos to capture that, but I'm also always trying to balance, strike this balance of capturing the photo and, being able to have that memory, but also being in the moment and being present with my kids and not having my phone in my hands or even on my body when I'm spending time with my kids. So sorry, this episode might be a little rambling, I guess, just because there's so much related to this and so much to unpack. But I do think it's a really interesting and important topic in terms of kind of documenting the lives of our lives and our families' lives. So part of this, I had on my, goal list for the year, for multiple years, I wanted to organize photos. I think part of it started with my honeymoon. I had all of these photos from this amazing honeymoon all over Africa and all of these, what am I going to do with all of these photos? And I never really did much. I tried to outsource it at one point. I tried to move it all to Dropbox and I came up with these systems, but nothing ever really stuck. And then when I had kids, I was like, this is really I've got to rein this in and figure out a process for handling this. How am I going to organize all of this? And at one point, my friend Jen over at the Unhurried Life podcast, I've been on her podcast. I'll try and look that up. It's a few years ago. And I can link that in the show notes. And I've actually been on it twice now. And one of it was to talk about this project. But she came up with this system. So she used to be a photographer, or she's still a photographer. I don't think she does that day to day, but she had to deal with large quantities of photos, and she has a system for organizing photos, and she actually has a course, and she reached out to me and said, I would love to let you try this course for free and then, in hopes that I would share it with my audience. And that was a few years ago, I think 2 years ago. And since then it's the kind of course that you look at it, or for me, I looked at it once and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do. And I dove right in and I started it. But it wasn't like a few weeks. I think some of the steps can be a few weeks, but it was really kind of a full year of wrapping my head around it and really going in and getting all of my photos into place. So I'll try and talk through some of the steps that I took through that course. Of course, I will link that in the show notes, but kind of just talk through some of the top line things that I did and things that you can think about in terms of your own organization of photos, and her process that she uses. So, and there are some areas where, for the most part, in the beginning, I followed everything she says to a T, because she definitely knows, she has a process and it works. But then over time, there have been a few things that I've tweaked to kind of do, a way that works well for me. But the first part of the process is going back in time and organizing all the photos from your past. And depending on your age, for me, this was an interesting process of high school and college. It was all printed photos. So it was going through all of, photos that my mom had brought me and photos from college. And there were a lot, but not anything near the, quantity that we have now in terms of digital photos. So going through those hard copy ones and putting those into photo boxes. And this is where she does have, a specific process in the course of boxes and all that. But organizing all of those hard copy photos and, sorting those out physically. And after you do that, it kind of helps you wrap your head around how to do it digitally. Because for me, I'm a very visual person. So doing the physical process of sorting photos, then it helped me realize how I wanted to do that digitally. And the digital process is it's crazy how I had some digital photos for a few years. And I don't know the exact years off the top of my head, but then there's the year I got an iPhone, and from that year forward, the quantity of photos that I had, especially back from the early days of Prep Dish, because in the early days, I don't do the food photography now. I never really did what I would call food photography because that was not my strength, but I used to take a lot of food photos to share, either online or especially on Instagram and stuff like that. And I'll still do that today, but I've learned over time that I don't need to save all of those photos. And in the past I did. And so trying to figure out going back and kind of organizing all of those. And you might have something similar in your, photo album of, they're not necessarily photos of something that you need to save forever. So kind of figuring that out and organizing all of those and getting them sorted by year and month and figuring that out. That process for me actually took basically a full year. I don't know that it does for everyone. It's just kind of, I wanted to do it properly. I wanted to make sure they were all in one place. It included getting some hard drives, sending the hard drives off to a service to then put it on the computer for me, because my computer wasn't compatible with that hard drive. And so I just found a service to send it off. But really, because now all of my digital photos are in one place, and they're backed up in two spots, but one of the spots is on a removable, I'm trying to think of the correct wording on it, but it's a hard drive that exists outside my computer, and that's the backup. And then they're backed up on Dropbox and organized by year and month. And I have some labels and stuff that go on in there. So that is part of the process, is kind of organizing it historically. And then, gosh, I'm trying to think. I actually think what I'm going to do as I'm getting into this is, I think the process for moving forward and what I'm creating and the process I use to month, I think I'm going to split that up into a second episode, because I'm looking at the time here and this, even just this, going back in time and organizing, I think is going to be enough content for one episode. So The thing I will say, I mean, of course, like check out some of Jen's stuff. And I know she even has some podcast episodes that go into this like in more detail, like of her process. So you might want to check those out. And of course, if you're interested in her course, I do have an affiliate link that's not, I mean, please use that if you feel called to like take her course. I do recommend her course. It's been the basis of this whole project for me, but she definitely talks about it kind of online and other places if you just want to get a taste of her process and how she recommends kind of sorting through all of that to start and setting the base. But for me, I recommend really kind of starting with that historical thing. It was really hard for me to like not in the moment organize the photos I was taking and start with this like historical organization. But I think it was important to kind of wrap my head around how I was going to organize things moving forward. And it motivated me for sure. And I will say too, the thing that this project overall, it's made me more aware and intentional of the photos I am taking, because I don't want just this like big unruly thing of photos on my phone that I never use. And it's been a really good practice too, in being more present when I'm with my family and not worrying as much about getting the photos. But also on the flip side of that is there are times where I've been more aware and intentional of getting photos, because what I'll get into more next week is the process of like photo albums and stuff like that, and realizing there are moments that I really do want to capture. And, that's especially like if we have family visiting or special friends that are visiting and things like that. And I really want to have photos to document for a photo album or different projects that I've been working on. So there's times where it's made me, kind of more aware of getting a photo, but then also realizing those day-to-day moments have, sometimes where I do get some photos, but I don't need, as many as maybe I think in the past I thought I did, especially with kids that are rapidly growing. So we'll get more into that in next week's episode. But I hope this kind of insight into going back, re-looking at your past photos, having them all in one place, having them digitally backed up on a hard drive, definitely and just again, all in one place. Before it was just like this random, I wanted a photo from college, I would have to go back on Facebook and find it. But having it all in one spot is just, I can't, just mentally too, makes you feel more, it made me feel more at ease about my photos and where they all were and how I was storing them. So hopefully this gets you thinking a little bit more about all of your photos and how you might want to organize them. And I look forward to next week sharing more about the process specifically to what I'm doing today and some of the fun projects that this has allowed me to work on. I hope you found this episode interesting. I'm at PrepDish on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. Is this something you're interested in? Again, it's a little more, system and process and organization related, but definitely not. It's a little off topic in terms of meal prep and recipes. So let me know, are these sort of topics interesting to you? Are there other topics you'd like to hear from me on? Again, at PrepDish on Instagram. I also am on the PrepDish Facebook group. So if you ever, post in there, I definitely keep up with all, or try to, as well as I can, keep up with all of the messages in there. So I'm always happy to look at messages in the group as well. So just reach out, let me know what you think. And if you have not tried the PrepDish meal plans, again, you can go to prepdish.com/MPM. That's short for Meal Prep Monday. Try us out for 2 weeks for free. And all of the links are in the show notes for PrepDish, as well as links for Jen's podcast and my episode with her. And of course, a link to her photo organization system. It's called POP. So photo organization process, maybe. I don't know. I always call it POP in my notes. So yeah, I will be back again next week to continue on this topic.